Hello, I'd like to cover some basics about how we use iLab in the Imaging Cores Optical. iLab is a software as a service application that all three of the state universities in Arizona use to manage their core facilities. In our core, we primarily use iLab's scheduling functions to provide access to the microscopes or image analysis workstations and to track the usage. Other cores allow you to do things like request specific services like you might do in the genomics core and the mass spectrometry core, and to track the status of your requests as it works its way through the system. And iLab is integrated with our campus single sign-on called the UA Net ID, and on the back end the billing goes through the U of A's financial system. If you are an internal University of Arizona user, a faculty member will automatically be added to the iLab since they have fund account numbers, but other users like students, staff, and postdocs who haven't already been logged into iLab will need to log in the first time. You can do that by going to ua.ilab.agilent.com, and in the upper right-hand corner there's a button that says Sign In, and if you click on that link it will take you to the U of A single sign-on, and then you'll be asked which lab you want to be part of. You start with one lab, but you can be part of multiple labs. For example, if you happen to be a lab that does a lot of microscopy and you have yourself or someone else that's very skilled at it, perhaps a colleague will ask you, your PI, if someone from your lab could take some images using one of the microscopes in the core for them. So you would need to be part of that other colleague's lab for them to be able to give you access to their funds to be able to spend them in the core. Internal U of A users can only pay with an internal account. Any other payment method will require registration as an external user. External users would be anyone who doesn't have an official U of A Net ID or access to an internal University of Arizona account. In other words, you want to pay by credit card, or check, or purchase order. You need to go to the same URL, ua.ilab.agilent.com, and then click in the sign in link in the upper right-hand corner and register under Not a University of Arizona User. There are multiple tabs in the form that need to be completed, and once all that's done, you should receive a welcome email containing your login credentials, usually within one business day. iLab's created, or Agilent has created, a more detailed video that goes over a wide range of the ways you can use the software at the University of Arizona. I won't go into detail on anything other than how we use it for scheduling. If you're a first-time user of a microscope in our core, we would love to correspond with you or talk to you in person or on the phone to get some more information about your research and your interest and your needs, and make sure that you're pointing yourself towards the correct microscope to do the best research possible for what you're trying to accomplish. If you want to be trained, please understand that training often requires scheduling 2 to 4 sessions on the microscope, and it somewhat depends on the complexity of the microscope, and there's coordination between the availability of the instrument, the availability of the trainer, and the user. So that all has to be worked out. Email us and we will work something out with you. Once you become a trained user, you can log into the schedule or into the core and access the schedule using the Schedule Equipment tab. And the microscope will either be located in the Life Sciences North building or in the Marley building. You can drop that list down, and then you can select the bolded name of the instrument, or over on the right-hand side there'll be a link that says, or a button that says View Schedule. And it would be probably wise to bookmark some of the things for the different cores that you use. Otherwise, there's an awful lot of clicks in iLab. On an individual schedule, we regularly use the space above the calendar for information and announcements, so check there periodically. If you are a brand newly trained user, we ask that you consider reserving time during the work week so that we're available to help you if you have a problem. Once you get pretty confident, then nights and weekends are great. I will say that there are a couple of microscopes that have less expensive weekend rates, not all of them, and you'll need to inquire about those. On the calendar itself, you can only reserve time that's not already being used. There are openings on the calendar, you can use those, or if you see a large gray box that says canceled, you're allowed to schedule over canceled time. That just means that someone canceled their appointment less than 24 hours in advance, and that doesn't get completely erased because they'll end up possibly paying for some of that time. To start an appointment with your mouse, click and drag over the time slot that you want to reserve, but don't worry if you don't get it exactly right because you'll be able to correct that in a moment. Within the form that comes up next, you have the opportunity to leave some notes. If you want to tell us what imaging technique that you're going to be using, you want to leave some notes for your own reference so that your supervisor knows what it is that you did on the microscope. You can use that, and anything that's in that event notes will show up on the invoice. For those of you that might want a different lens to be mounted on a microscope, we can do that. We prefer that you email us directly, but it can be done in the form as well. Please understand that switching lenses on microscopes is not something that's easy to do, and that there are other users and we can't be switching lenses 2 or 3 times a day. So we may need to kind of coordinate that. If you need to change your starting or ending time, you can do that by clicking on this little yellow pencil right here. Please be aware that if you are setting up your appointment close to either appointment right before or right afterwards, it may not allow you to schedule into the other person's time. Once you've set up the correct starting and ending times, remember to click the Save button. Otherwise, this form somewhat unhelpfully won't let you save it. Make sure you give us an account number here. Your PI is the only one that can give you access to accounts, and you can split things between multiple accounts if you're, say, the first half of your session was on one grant and the second half of your session was related to a different grant. If you happen to be using core facility pilot funds, there will be another option that you have access to, and it will be the pilot fund account will be under center accounts. And remember to click Save the reservation when you're done, because otherwise, after 15 minutes, unsaved reservations disappear. For example, this screen capture here is an unsaved reservation. It says it will expire in 15 minutes. If you need to edit your appointment, you can click on it in the calendar and click on the tiny little pencil to actually edit it. One thing that you might want to do is change or add some comments. Perhaps you're working on the night or weekend and something didn't go right and you need some feedback from the manager, or you think there's something wrong with the instrument. Please let us know and we will try and make sure that something happens so that it works correctly. You can change the account number, change a number of things about the time. Just remember that there is a cancellation policy, and you should make any changes to your appointment at least 24 hours in advance. Less than that, and then you could end up paying for things. So, for example, deciding at the last minute that you're not going to come in, you'll be paying for the number of hours that you reserve. More than 24 hours in advance, just click Delete Reservation and you're good. There is the full policy. We're going to provide a link down below, but also it's on every schedule in iLab. There's a link to it. When you sit down at an instrument to use it, the browser should take you to the iLab kiosk. You log in with your regular login credentials. You can tell it to start your session. This is another screen. One thing to remember that you want to keep your browser open and maybe minimize during the time that you're working with the instrument or the computer workstation. It just makes logging out a whole lot simpler to not have to log in twice. Trained users can walk up to an instrument. So if you look at the schedule and it looks free all afternoon, you can walk down, sit down, start your login and set up an appointment right on the spot. And as long as there's a green check mark next to the instrument, you can start right away. The reason for the red slash might be, in this case, somebody's actually using the microscope. It could be that the time that you want to use is marked as a maintenance window, or that the microscope is not working correctly. If you want to make a reservation later in the week, say you come in on Monday or Tuesday, you like the images you got, but you need to come back for some more, you can go to the right side of the window where your name will be instead of mine, drop down that dialog box and go back to Core. And I would suggest doing that with a right click so that you open a new tab in the web browser. That avoids having to go through multiple clicks to come back to the kiosk. You can adjust this scale if you want to keep track of all the things that you're signed up for, out to a day before or a day after right now. Say you signed up for an hour's worth of time on a microscope and you realize you're getting great images and you want to keep going. You can come back to the kiosk and extend your session, either in this window or the other one that comes with the kiosk. Just be realistic and reasonable in how you extend your session, because if you add more time to it, you will end up being billed for that time. If you forget to use the kiosk and try and log in, the software is locked, some other special protective software, and you'll get this dialog box with this old-fashioned looking key. It just means that you haven't logged into the kiosk and started your session. Do that and you should be able to launch the software without any problems. On one or two of our mostly image analysis workstations, they use a hardware interlock that turns off the power to the computer screen, even if the computer itself is booted up. You can unlock the screen from any other computer, including your phone or a tablet, as long as you're going through the iLab kiosk. It allows us to track usage, and that can be important when we need a new computer to replace what we already have or to get service on it. If you're finding that what you need to do doesn't seem to match any of the instruments we have at the University of Arizona, one option is to talk to us and see if maybe we know of an available instrument that either isn't on iLab, or perhaps sometimes there are instruments in individual labs. But it's also possible that you need to look outside the university, and the Arizona Core Network is one way to do that. The three universities, the state universities, are all on iLab, and they've come to an agreement that certain centrally managed core facilities, and unfortunately it's not all of them, will be accessible to people from the other institutions at internal rates. Let us help you figure this out, because microscopy has some very specialized techniques. Not all of them are easy to do, and just grabbing some name off of a website at ASU or NAU and driving all the way there only to discover that it really didn't do what you needed to do will certainly be frustrating. So that's what we're here for, is to help you out. I want to acknowledge my colleague and longtime co-worker, Patty Jansma. She contributed, and acknowledge the funding from the Environmental Health Sciences Center here. Thank you for watching.